There is a moment in every awakening when you realize that some people's hatred has nothing to do with you. Their venom is not a reflection of your faults, but of their fractures. Their rejection is not born of truth, but of projection. And the moment you grasp this, something ancient within you begins to stir the part of you that refuses to beg for understanding. The part of you that remembers, not all hostility is earned. They hate because your presence reminds them of their own absence. You carry light they have long abandoned, and light is unbearable to eyes accustomed to darkness. Every time you speak truth without trembling, you expose their silence. Every time you rise after failure, you shame their excuses. Every time you stand alone with conviction, you trigger the part of them that kneels before comfort. Carl Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, but few ever walk that path. Most people stop at irritation, never reaching understanding. They stop at envy, never reaching inspiration. They stop at hatred, never reaching humility. The truth is, the emotions people project onto you are mirrors, but not everyone has the courage to look into them. When they see you succeed without permission, when they feel the gravity of your authenticity, they are forced to confront the mediocrity they chose. And that confrontation is agony for the fragile ego. So rather than evolve, they attack. It's easier to destroy what reminds them of their own cowardice than to face it. Do not take it personally. Their hatred is a confession. It tells you exactly where they are in their evolution. It reveals their imprisonment within shadow, the shadow they refuse to integrate. Because what is hatred if not unintegrated self-loathing? What is jealousy if not admiration poisoned by shame? Understand this. Energy cannot lie. When your spirit ascends, those still chained to the lower frequencies will feel threatened. Your peace will disturb their chaos. Your confidence will expose their insecurity. Your freedom will enrage their control. And they will call you arrogant, heartless, detached, not because you are, but because your independence reminds them of their own submission. They will create stories about you. They will distort your silence into arrogance, your focus into selfishness, your strength into cruelty. But that is the price of authenticity misunderstanding. The deeper you walk into truth, the more you become a mirror that burns those who refuse to see. Do not dim yourself to be tolerated. You were not born to fit into the wounded imaginations of others. You were born to expose the sickness in the collective psyche, the sickness of comparison, the sickness of envy, the sickness of unconscious projection. Your presence is medicine, but medicine often tastes like poison to those still addicted to their disease. Nietzsche once said, "Those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music." They hate because they cannot hear what you hear. They cannot feel what you feel. They have not yet tuned themselves to the higher frequency of becoming. They look at your evolution and call it ego, because they cannot yet differentiate between self-love and selfishness, between confidence and arrogance, between discipline and detachment. But you must understand this. Your existence will always offend those who built their identity on limitation. To them, your expansion is rebellion. Your boundaries are betrayal. Your silence is violence. They do not want to understand you. They want you to shrink back into the version of you that made them comfortable. Never return there. You were not meant to live a life of emotional negotiation with those committed to misunderstanding you. You were meant to live freely, fiercely, fully, without apology. Let them misunderstand. Let them twist. Let them project. That's the tax of visibility. You are the evidence that the human spirit can break conditioning, and that evidence will always be uncomfortable for those still enslaved by it. People do not hate what they do not understand. They hate what they recognize and cannot accept. You remind them of the person they betrayed within themselves. Every time you rise above gossip, you mirror their weakness. Every time you refuse to engage in pettiness, you show them their own smallness. Every time you forgive where they would have retaliated, you reveal their lack of mastery. That's why they flinch when you walk into a room, not because of your presence, but because of what your presence reveals. You become a psychological earthquake shaking the foundations of every false identity around you. And they call that disturbance hate. But in truth, it's fear. You threaten the illusion they have mistaken for reality. The world does not hate power. It hates purity, because purity cannot be manipulated. Purity is incorruptible. And when you stand in your truth without bending, those who rely on deception to feel alive will despise you. They'll cloak it in sarcasm, in passive aggression, in silence, but underneath it all lies envy, the most cowardly form of admiration. Let them feel it. Let them stew in their discomfort. Do not educate them. Do not explain yourself. Do not waste sacred energy translating your essence into their wounded language. Their hatred is not your problem. It's their curriculum. Machiavelli wrote that men sooner forget the death of their father than the loss of their inheritance. And nothing threatens people more than the inheritance of power they believe belongs only to them. When you rise without permission, you trespass into territories guarded by fragile egos. They feel robbed not of opportunity, but of illusion. You've proven that what they call impossible was simply inconvenient to their laziness. So they curse what they cannot become. Let them, because hate is the last cry of the weak before transformation, and you must not lower your frequency to answer it. The lion does not roar back at barking dogs. The eagle does not descend to argue with crows. The storm does not apologize for rain. Stay above. Move in silence. Let your results speak the language they cannot refute, because your success, your calm, your persistence, that is the most devastating reply to hatred. The universe is too vast for you to waste energy defending yourself in small spaces. Remember this. No one truly hates you. They hate the mirror you hold. They hate the truth that their own soul whispers when it sees you. They hate that your peace cannot be purchased, that your confidence cannot be borrowed, that your discipline cannot be faked. You are not their enemy, you are their reminder. And the world does not forgive reminders. It forgives mediocrity, it forgives submission, but it never forgives freedom. Freedom makes people nervous because it exposes their chains. Your calm terrifies them because it cannot be controlled. Your detachment enrages them because it cannot be seduced. Your joy offends them because it is self-sourced. But that's how you know you are walking the right path, when your mere existence disturbs what was never real. Let their hatred become the wind that sharpens your flame. Let their resentment feed your resolve. Let their projection polish your purpose. Every sneer, every whisper, every unseen glare, it's proof that you are no longer one of them. You have crossed the psychological threshold they fear to approach. Because the truth is not everyone hates you without reason. The reason is that you remind them of the self they abandoned. And that is not your burden to carry, it is their opportunity to awaken. Walk forward, calmly, silently, with a kind of grace that leaves their judgment irrelevant. Because when you truly embody peace, even hatred becomes applause in disguise. You will know you've evolved when the noise no longer touches you, when you can look at hostility and feel compassion, when you can see envy and respond with stillness, when you can be hated without becoming hateful. That is mastery. That is psychological liberation. Because no one can truly hate you once you've stopped needing to be loved by them. You become untouchable, unbothered, infinite. And they will call you mysterious. They will call you intimidating. They will call you cold. But what they're really saying is, you have become everything I was too afraid to be. And that is why some people hate you without reason. The hatred you encounter is not chaos. It is symmetry. It is the universe showing you balance through opposition. For every rise in vibration, there must be friction. For every elevation, there must be gravity that resists it. And those who hate you are often the unconscious instruments of that gravity. They are the test, the mirror, the necessary pressure that hardens your steel. Do not despise them for it. Thank them. Every glare that tried to curse you was a signal to evolve. Every rumor that sought to wound you was a lesson in detachment. Every silent resentment that followed your success taught you the sacred art of moving without validation. They shaped your resilience without ever realizing it. Because hatred, when purified, becomes fuel. It is transmuted through awareness into momentum. The weak absorb hate and collapse under its weight. The wise absorb hate and burn it into power. They use it to fortify their discipline, to refine their focus, to sharpen their vision. That is the alchemy of the awakened mind, turning rejection into redirection, turning envy into evidence, turning bitterness into blessing. Do not waste energy wondering why they hate. The why is irrelevant. The only question worth asking is, who are you becoming because of it? When the arrows of envy start flying, you can either run from them or learn to walk through them with unshaken eyes. Because the truly powerful understand, hate loses its poison the moment you stop drinking from its cup. The world feeds on reaction. It wants you emotional, impulsive, distracted, because reaction is control disguised as participation. But your silence is rebellion. Your composure is chaos to the insecure. Your lack of retaliation dismantles their illusion of power. You must learn to see hatred not as attack, but as data. Each act of resentment reveals something. Where fear hides, where jealousy festers, where weakness pretends to be strength. Every hater is a teacher in disguise, unknowingly pointing out where humanity is still asleep. And through that awareness, you rise above the need for vengeance. You begin to see that hatred is not personal, it is archetypal. It's the ancient dance between light and shadow, between self-acceptance and self-rejection. You are simply the canvas on which their inner war paints itself. Do not absorb their battle. Observe it. Let it unfold in front of you like theater. Let them perform their projections while you stand backstage, untouched, unseen, sovereign. This is where your inner alchemy begins. When you stop being reactive to darkness and instead you use it. You feed on it. As the phoenix feeds on fire, not to be destroyed, but to be reborn. And that rebirth begins in the mind. The mind must learn to see the invisible, to perceive patterns beneath emotion, to notice the rhythm behind resistance. Because when you look deeper, you'll realize hatred follows light, always. The brighter you burn, the more moths you attract. Some come to admire the flame, others come to extinguish it. But the flame does not care. It burns regardless. That is your task, to burn regardless. Even when misunderstood, burn. Even when mocked, burn. Even when isolated, burn. Because your purpose was never to be liked, it was to illuminate. The world does not reward light immediately. It resists it first. It attacks it, doubts it, slanders it, until one day it kneels before it, pretending it always believed. That is the cycle of truth. First they ignore you, then they mock you, then they resist you, and finally they imitate you. Do not rush the process. Endure it with grace. The longer they hate, the more they reveal who they are, and the more you are refined into who you were meant to become. Carl Jung called this individuation the process of becoming whole by confronting the unconscious. And part of that confrontation is learning to live unbothered by misunderstanding. You cannot become whole while still begging for acceptance from fragments. You cannot transcend while still needing applause from those afraid to rise. There will come a time when their silence no longer wounds you, when their betrayal no longer surprises you, when their absence feels like clarity, not loss. That's when you know you've crossed the threshold. Because when you reach a certain level of inner peace, hatred stops sounding like thunder. It sounds like static, background noise, irrelevant hum. You stop trying to fix it, explain it, or outshine it. You simply move through it, knowing that no amount of projection can rewrite your truth. Let them whisper. Let them assume. Let them turn your stillness into their story. The truth needs no defense. It only needs time. And time, my friend, is undefeated. What they mock today, they will quote tomorrow. What they envy today, they will imitate when the crowd changes its tune. What they call arrogance today, they will call vision once they evolve. So keep walking. Walk through the noise as if it were wind. Walk through the judgment as if it were fog. Walk through their hatred as if it were weather temporary, meaningless, passing. You are not here to please them. You are here to awaken them. And awakening is rarely welcomed with applause. In every age, the awakened are crucified first and celebrated later. From Socrates to Christ, from Nietzsche to Jung, the pattern remains. Humanity resists what exposes its illusions. You will be hated for your truth until the world grows mature enough to call it wisdom. So do not seek to be loved. Seek to be real. Because love built on pretense is short-lived, but hatred born from authenticity is eternal proof that you lived honestly. You are not meant to be universally liked. You are meant to be unmistakably yourself. The more authentic you become, the smaller your circle will be, but the deeper your peace will grow. And when that peace settles in, you'll finally understand. Hatred is not the opposite of love in differences. Hatred still means your light was felt. Your energy disturbed something dormant. Your very existence demanded reflection. Let them hate it means you mattered. Let them sneer. It means you stirred the waters. Let them turn away. It means your light was too strong for their eyes. And one day when their own awakening begins, they'll remember the one they once hated, the one who triggered them, the one who refused to shrink, the one who kept walking while they stood still. And in that moment they will understand. They will see that what they called arrogance was courage. What they called coldness was focus. What they called distance was freedom. Because no one truly hates you without reason, they just haven't yet evolved enough to name the reason accurately. They call it hate. You call it awakening. And that is how you must live, untouched, unwavering, illuminated. Because the world does not need another person desperate to be liked. It needs someone unafraid to be real, even when real means being hated. Keep walking. Keep shining. Keep burning. For even the stars are hated by the dark, and yet they never stop shining. The more your light grows, the more you will feel it, that subtle resistance that follows every step forward. The energy of those who cannot comprehend how you move without their permission. The whispers, the side glances, the invisible wall of tension that appears when you walk into a room. They don't have to speak it. You can feel it in the air, the discomfort that your authenticity creates. Do not shrink to ease that tension. It is not your job to make others comfortable inside their own denial. Your peace will always disturb those who build their identity around suffering. Your confidence will always threaten those who found safety in self-pity. Your independence will always offend those addicted to validation. They call it hate, but it's not hate, it's defense. You represent the freedom they abandoned. You embody the courage they buried. You remind them of the voice they silenced long ago to belong. And now, in your presence, that voice stirs again, screaming inside them, "Wake up!" But instead of listening, they attack the messenger. It has always been this way. Socrates was condemned for asking questions too deep for the fragile minds of his era. Christ was crucified for showing men their hypocrisy. Galileo was imprisoned for seeing what others refused to look at. The world does not punish evil as much as it punishes truth that threatens comfort. When you live as truth, you will be tested as threat. But hear this, they cannot destroy what does not depend on their acceptance. They cannot silence what no longer seeks their audience. Their hatred has no power unless you feed it attention. The only thing that ever amplifies darkness is your reaction to it. So starvate, withdraw your energy. Let them rage in the vacuum of your indifference. The storm only lasts as long as the wind finds resistance. Do not resist, observe. Watch as their fury burns itself into silence. Watch as their judgment collapses under its own weight. Watch as the same mouths that cursed you begin to echo your words when the crowd shifts. because all hate, left unattended, decays into respect. The same people who dismissed you will study you. The same voices that mocked you will quote you. The same eyes that rolled at your ambition will one day widen in disbelief at what you became. And by then you will not even notice, because you will have long stopped caring. By then you will be too focused on creation, on building, expanding, evolving. The further you walk, the smaller their noise will sound until one day it becomes memory. And the memory too will fade. That is the beauty of transcendence. Everything that once hurt you becomes background to the music of your own becoming. But you must not skip this part. The hatred, the misunderstanding, the rejection. It is necessary. It's the fire that forges discernment. Without it, you would not learn the discipline of emotional detachment. You would not discover the strength of silence. You would not develop the unshakable peace that only comes from being misunderstood and choosing serenity anyway. The ones who hate you are your silent trainers. They sculpt your resilience through rejection. They sharpen your focus through slander. They fortify your will through envy. You are their teacher, yes, but they are your blacksmith. They hammer your soul against the anvil of judgment until all weakness breaks away. And when the noise stops, you emerge not bitter, not bruised, but clean, polished by fire, refined by friction. That is how warriors of light are made, not in the warmth of applause, but in the cold of isolation. You will know you have ascended when hatred no longer feels personal, when you can look into the eyes of those who wish you harm and feel compassion instead of rage, because now you understand they are not your enemies. They are souls still asleep, dreaming of separation. They do not hate you. They hate the mirror that shows them everything they could be if they chose courage over conformity. So bless them. Bless them for the role they play in your evolution. Bless them for their blindness, for it allowed you to see. Bless them for their noise, for it forced you into silence. Bless them for their betrayal, for it freed you from dependence. You owe them gratitude, not revenge, because without them you would not have discovered that the only validation worth seeking is your own. And that, right there, is freedom to walk through the world immune to its opinions, unbothered by its projections, untouched by its storms. People will ask how you do it, how you remain calm while surrounded by chaos, how you smile while being misunderstood, how you keep moving when the world throws stones. And you will say nothing. You will simply continue. Because true mastery needs no explanation. The lion does not explain its silence to the sheep. The mountain does not justify its stillness to the wind. The ocean does not apologize for its depth to the shallow. You simply exist, unshaken, undeniable, unrepeatable. You have become an archetype of transcendence, a living symbol of what happens when a soul refuses to be dragged into the mud of projection. This is what it means to evolve, to outgrow the emotional reach of the unconscious, to be so grounded in truth that no amount of noise can uproot you, to be so at peace with yourself that no hatred can alter your rhythm. And in that stillness you realize something profound, that even those who hate you are part of your path back to unity. Because if they hadn't resisted your light, you might never have learned how to let it burn quietly, endlessly, without need for recognition. They taught you to detach. They taught you to protect your peace. They taught you to love from a distance. And now nothing can touch you. You have walked through the fire of misunderstanding and emerged as clarity. You have passed through the storm of rejection and found your own sky. You have stood before hatred and remembered your humanity. And that is what terrifies them most. Not that you are powerful, but that you are kind despite it, that you can face hate without reflecting it, that you can see darkness and still choose to illuminate. You have become the proof that peace is not weakness. It is weaponry of the highest order. So walk on quietly, confidently, untouchably, because every time they hate you, the universe applauds you. Every time they reject you, you are redirected. Every time they misunderstand you, you are refined. You have become too vast to be defined by small minds, too rooted to be moved by weak hearts, too awake to be threatened by the asleep. They may hate you today, but their hatred is proof that your evolution is real. And one day, when they finally awaken, they will understand. They will realize that what they fought against was never your arrogance, it was your freedom. And by then, you will be long gone walking calmly toward the horizon, light spilling from your silence, untouchable, eternal. Because the soul that no longer needs to be loved by everyone is finally loved by itself. And when that day comes, when the noise fades, when the shadows exhaust themselves trying to reach you, you will stand at the edge of everything you once feared and feel nothing but peace. Because you will have realized what so few ever do, that hatred, like admiration, is merely a mirror reflecting the observer. It never truly belonged to you. It was never your burden to carry, only your signal to rise. All along, their hatred was a language crude, unconscious, but honest. It was life whispering to you, keep going. It was proof that you were no longer living in imitation, proof that your vibration no longer fit within the small cages of comfort, proof that you had outgrown their frequency. And as you rise beyond the need to be understood, something miraculous happens. You begin to feel compassion, not just for those who loved you, but for those who could not. You begin to see that their hatred was simply fear wearing armor. You begin to realize that the same pain that once sought to wound you was in truth begging for light. That is when you transcend hatred entirely, not by conquering it, but by outgrowing the game itself. You stop trying to be right. You stop trying to be seen. You stop trying to prove. You become still, immovable, radiant. You understand finally what Carl Jung meant when he said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Because that's what you've done. You have faced the hatred, absorbed its lessons, and turned it into wisdom. You have walked through the shadows without losing your flame. You have turned every curse into clarity. You've realized that those who hated you were never your enemies. They were your teachers. They showed you where your ego was still fragile. They revealed where your boundaries were weak. They forced you to grow beyond the reach of emotional manipulation. And now, you are untouchable, not because you built walls, but because you dissolved them. You no longer need to defend yourself, because there is nothing left to defend. You no longer need to explain, because truth does not negotiate. You no longer need to win, because you are no longer playing. You are free. Free from the approval of strangers, free from the opinions of the blind, free from the need to be understood by those who cannot even understand themselves. You have become what the ancients called a still soul, a being who walks through the world without disturbance, whose peace cannot be stolen, whose silence roars louder than any accusation. They will continue to speak. They will continue to project. They will continue to misunderstand, and you will continue to rise. Because your mission was never to be loved by everyone, it was to become yourself, fully, fiercely, unapologetically. You are no longer living to please. You are living to be. You are no longer here to be liked. You are here to embody light. And light does not argue with darkness, it simply shines. So shine. Shine without asking permission. Shine without explanation. Shine knowing that every ounce of hatred directed toward you only proves that your presence is working. For no one throws stones at what is ordinary. No one envies what is forgettable. No one hates what is invisible. They hate you because you remind them that they could have been more and still can be. Let that be enough. You do not need their apology. You do not need their recognition. You do not need their love. You only need your own. Because when you finally love yourself enough to walk alone, you will see that you were never alone. The universe has been walking with you all along, disguised as resistance. And in that final understanding, all hatred dissolves into gratitude. You will look back at the pain, the judgment, the envy, and whisper, "Thank you. Thank you for the pressure that forged my strength. Thank you for the rejection that revealed my worth. Thank you for the hatred that awakened my truth, because without it, I would still be small. Now I am vast. Now I am free. Now I am unbothered, unmoved, and unstoppable. They may hate you without reason, but you will love yourself with purpose. And that purpose, that unshakable inner peace, will echo through eternity. Because no amount of hate can reach a soul that has become its own home. You have become that home. You have become that light. You have become that stillness. And no one, not the critics, not the cowards, not even the shadows, can ever touch you again. You are free. And that, my friend, is why some people hate you without reason.